Good day, everybody. This is Ethan from the Sawtooth Avalanche Center with your weekend update for Friday, March 24th. As a reminder, this does not replace the daily avalanche forecast, so check that out on our website every morning at 7 a.m. All right, let's jump in. Unfortunately, I have to start off with some very sad news today. A snowmobiler was killed in an avalanche Wednesday, March 22nd. A group of three was riding in the Trinity Lakes area of the Boise National Forest. One rider was caught in the avalanche and buried several feet deep. His partners located the rider but were unable to revive him. We extend our heartfelt condolences to the victims' friends and family. We will visit the accident site Monday and will release additional information as it becomes available. There is no backcountry avalanche forecast for the Trinity Mountains. The avalanche danger at the time of the accident was rated considerable at upper elevations and moderate at middle elevations in the Sawtooth and Western Smoky Mountain forecast area, which is 17 miles to the east of the accident site. Okay, here's a look at what happened this past week in the weather around Galena Summit. You can see that we had some pretty warm days earlier this week, and temperatures started to cool toward the end of the week. We had quite a bit of wind earlier in the week as well, associated with some small storms that started on Sunday. Predominant wind directions came out of the south, southeast until they switched a little bit more west and northwest toward the end of the week. Here are the snow totals in the past 7 days, including what's expected to fall today. You can see, a little bit more than a foot up in Banner Summit, as much as 2 feet in the Sawtooth and Western Smokies, 10 to 20 inches in Galena Summit and Eastern Mountains, and 5 to 15 inches down in Soldier and Wood River Valley Mountains. The majority of that is falling on the western half of the zone from Dollarhide over to the Soldier Mountains. As far as danger is concerned, the Galena Summit and Eastern Mountain zones remained considerable all week long, while the danger did come down to moderate down here in the Soldier and Wood River Mountains in the last 3 days. The avalanche problems that we're dealing with currently are persistent slabs. We have a setup of 2 to 4 foot thick, dense slabs sitting over weak layers of snow in our snowpack. Those slabs formed during those 2 very large storms that we experienced earlier this month. We also have a wind slab problem, since we have got upwards of 2 feet of snow in some of the reaches of the Sawtooths and the Galena Summit zone over the last 7 days. That associated with some wind, particularly today, are going to be forming some wind slabs that people should keep in mind as they're heading out if they're getting into the Alpine. So what do these slabs look like? We have, as I mentioned, 2 to 4 foot thick slabs, which are driving our persistent slab problem and really are dictating what kind of terrain we're choosing to ski and ride out there currently. Here's a pit on the left-hand side that JP dug yesterday out in Owl Creek, which is just south of Galena Lodge a little ways. And you can see that at the top, we have a little bit of new snow that's down to that first line, and it's very soft. But as you continue down toward where he has the red arrow there, the slab just becomes harder and harder and more dense. And these slabs are anywhere from 2 to 4 feet thick, and they sit over weak layers of facets and crusts that were formed during our dry spell in February. That's on a north aspect. On the right-hand side is a pit that Ben and I dug yesterday near Galena Summit. Very similar in the sense that it has softer snow near the top that gets very dense and hard as it goes down toward the base of the slab. And it also sat over some very weak facets associated with a crust. If we're going to talk about avalanches, the most recent avalanches that we have that were triggered in our forecast area were 6 days ago now, back on Saturday the 18th, and this was just shortly following our last big storm. Here's a cornice that was cut that triggered this large avalanche on Galena Peak, and an avalanche that was triggered intentionally by JP from a from a flat ridge. It was remotely triggered out in the White Clouds. Both of those two avalanches involved this weak snow that I just showed in the previous slide. So looking ahead at the weather, we are still cold. It is going to be quite cold this weekend, well below average. This is the weather forecast for Bald Mountain, just above the Wood River Valley. Highs in the mid to upper teens. We will see a bit of a warming trend Monday and Tuesday of next week, but it's going to be cold with chances of snow over the weekend for the most part. So some tips and takeaways on how to deal with our current avalanche situation. We're in a low probability but high consequence scenario. So the odds of triggering these avalanches are fairly low. The slabs are very thick and dense, as I pointed out earlier, which makes it harder for our weight to impact those weak layers of snow. But if we do find a spot that we're able to impact those weak layers, the resulting slide can be catastrophic. These are going to be very large, hard slab avalanches that our odds of surviving an involvement in one of those sorts of slides are quite low. So tracks on a slope do not mean that it is safe. Multiple riders can ski or traverse a slope before finally finding the right or wrong spot to trigger one of these large avalanches. Stability tests really are of little use due to the density of the slab and the depth of these weak layers. It's hard to draw any conclusions from those. The first sign of instability that you may actually see might be the slide that you trigger. So you're not going to be walking around getting obvious collapsing and cracking likely. Unfortunately, yeah, the first sign that the slope is unstable might be the fact that it's sliding out from under your feet. So this provides for a pretty tricky scenario. When we're out there, we're not getting a lot of direct feedback, but we have to just remember that the snowpack structure is poor. That is not going to change very quickly, and neither are the odds that we start to trigger these avalanches. That's going to slowly decrease over time. It's not something that'll heal itself readily. So how do we manage this type of a problem? Well, if you're not comfortable being involved in a slide of the size kind of pictured to the right, you can completely avoid avalanche terrain. That's the simplest technique, and the one that currently I'm choosing to employ. You can also stick to just lower angled terrain, lower than 35 degrees, and simple terrain, meaning, if you were to be caught off guard or surprised, you're not going to be stuffed into an obvious terrain trap, gully, or some other hazard that would increase the odds of injury if you were caught in one of these avalanches. So please let us know what you see out there, especially if you see or trigger any avalanches. We've gotten so many awesome observations from you guys this year, and we really, really appreciate it. Enjoy this cold, wet, extended spring that we're having right now, and we hope to see you out in the hills. Thanks.